name is Gene Rugburn, and today we will be playing a segment of Family Freud. Please welcome our dear contestant Herman and Teddy.
Hello.
Today we will be asking serious questions regarding anything from physical development to social development. Family Freud, our contestants Herman and Teddy have the opportunity to win a beautiful GFI pedal steel as well as this banjo right here. Question. Give an example of an infant reflex.
Well, an example of an infant reflex would be the Babinski reflex. And that occurs when you touch the sole of a baby's foot. They're basically the toes fan out.
Correct. Second question. Describe the infant motor development from 4 through 16 months.
Well, from 4 months, babies start to turn from their stomach to their side. From 5 months, they start to turn from their stomach to their back. From 6 months, they start to turn from their back to their stomach. From 7 to 8 months, they start to sit. From 9 months, they start to crawl. From 10 to 11 months, they start to kneel. From 12 to 13 months, they start to stand. And finally, from 14, 15, and 16 months, they start to walk.
Correct. Third question. What happens during an adolescent growth spurt?
Well, typically during an adolescent growth spurt, they, hit puberty, years 12 to 13.
Correct. Fourth question. Describe the changes in body during middle age.
Well, during middle age, there's something that women could possibly get, which is called menopause, which occurs from ages 45 to 55, when women stop menstruation and basically, they can no longer conceive a child.
Correct. Fifth question. Describe the changes in health during old age.
Well, during old age, a really important physical feature that people really look upon is the elasticity of skin. Basically, the skin becomes less elastic in older people, and that's what leads to wrinkles. And something else is neurodegenerative diseases, such as senile dementia. And basically, there's ways to prevent certain neurodegenerative diseases, such as cognitive exercises.
Correct. And that concludes our first section of physical development. Section 2, social development. Question number 1, part A, attachment. Please describe attachment.
Well, attachment is an emotional bond between two people or more.
Correct. Part B, describe stranger anxiety.
Well, stranger anxiety is a form of distress that children experience when exposed to people who they aren't familiar with.
Absolutely correct. Question number 2, describe imprinting.
Well, imprinting is when a young animal acquires several of its behavioral characteristics from its parents.
Phenomenal. Question number 3, describe contact comfort.
Well, contact comfort basically reveals the importance of love, and it was said best by Harry Harlow.
Correct. Question number 4. Describe parenting styles and which ones are typically the best.
Okay, so with parenting styles, you have the authoritarian parenting style, which children are expected to follow the strict rules established by the parents. There's the authoritative parenting style, where they're more democratic than the authoritarian parenting style, but typically they're more nurturing, more forgiving, rather than punitive, such as the authoritarian parenting styles. And there's permissive and uninvolved. Permissive basically is when they have few demands to make of their children. They're quite non-traditional and lenient. And the uninvolved is kind of self-explanatory, where basically parents aren't really involved with their children's life. And the best one, said by most people, is the authoritative, because rules are still expected to be met, but they're more nurturing and forgiving than the authoritarians.
Absolutely correct. Question number 5. Describe a typical relationship between adolescents and parents.
Well, it could involve anything, actually.
Herman, I'm afraid you got that question wrong due to the subjectivity of this question. I'm sorry.
There's 4 categories of identity formation. Identity diffusion, the status in which the adolescent does not have a sense of having choices, has not made a commitment. Second stage, identity foreclosure, the status in which the adolescent seems willing to commit to some relative roles where he has not experienced an identity crisis. Third stage, identity moratorium, the status in which the adolescent is currently in a crisis, exploring new What is wrong? One more chance. What's the fourth stage?
Identity achievement, the status in which the adolescent has gone through an identity crisis and has made commitments to find a sense of identity. Number 8, list Erik Erikson's 8 stages of development.
Okay, well, first stage is infancy. Basic conflict is trust versus mistrust, and the important events are feeding. Second stage is early childhood. Basic conflict is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Important events are toilet training. The third stage is preschool, and it's initiation versus guilt. important events are exploration. The other stage is school age, which is industry versus everything else. Important events are school. Adolescence is the next, identity versus role confusion. And then middle adulthood is generativity versus stagnation, and it's work plus parenthood under the important events. Immaturity is ego integrity versus despair, and the important events are reflection on your life.
Correct. Question number 9. Define generativity and empty nest syndrome and give an example of either one.
Alright, well, generativity is basically when a parent pours all of their resources into their child. And the empty nest syndrome is when, well, it's a feeling of grief and loneliness when a parent or guardian loses their child. And an example would be, say, a son goes off to college and the mother's left alone by herself.
Correct. Question number 10. Define ego integrity.
Well, ego integrity is kind of like the development of a reliable sense of self.
Correct. Part B of the question. List techniques of a long and healthy life.
Well, you could go on a diet, you can take supplements, you can take hormone treatments, you can employ self-realization, realize who you actually are, and then just be content with yourself.
Correct. List the 5 stages of dying, as is said by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
First stage is denial, second stage is anger, third stage is bargaining, fourth stage is depression, and the 5th stage is acceptance.
Correct. Number 12. List the stages of development, as said by Sigmund Freud.
Okay, so Freud's psychosexual developmental stages. First stage is the oral stage, It sounds kind of disgusting, but it's his theory. Second stage is the anal stage. Third stage is the phallic stage. Fourth stage is the latent stage.
Absolutely correct, sir. Concludes section 2. Now we begin with section 3, cognitive development. Question number 1, Herman. List the 4 stages of Jean Pigot's theory of cognitive development.
Okay, well, first stage is the sensory motor characteristics. The infant knows the world through their movements and sensations. The second stage is the pre-operational stage, which is 2 to 7 years. Third stage is the concrete operational stage. The fourth stage, which appears to be the last, is the formal operation stage, 12 and up.
Correct. Question number 2. Explain Lawrence Kohlberg's 3 stages of moral development.
Okay, so level 1 is the pre-conventional morality. Stage 1 is obedience and punishment. It's the early stage of moral development, especially common in young children, but adults are also capable of expressing this type of reasoning. Okay, stage 2 is individualism and exchange. Right, at this stage, children account for individual points of view and judge actions based on how they serve individual needs, which also ties into the Heinz dilemma. Level 2 is conventional morality. There's stage 3, interpersonal relationships, and often referred to as a good boy, good girl orientation. There's stage 4, which is maintaining social order, and at this stage of moral development, people begin to consider society as a whole when making judgments. And level 3 is a post-conventional morality, and stage 5 is social, contract, and individual rights. Stage 6 is the universal principles, and that is it.
Question number 3, our final question for today's segment of Family Freud. What are some exercises for staying sharp at an old age?
Oh, you want me to answer the question?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I apologize. Well, some tips: you can practice cognitive exercises. Also, you can just solve mazes and crosswords.
Absolutely correct. And that concludes our segment of
pedal
Family
steel.
Freud. Sir, you have
Check this
just
out.
won a GFI pedal steel. How do you feel about yourself?
I feel amazing.
And you have also won a pretty banjo. How do you feel about yourself? Please explain, her.
Pretty great, actually. Yeah.